The day my family wrote me out of the will, I wrote them out of my life. And it was the best decision I ever made that I stopped being my family's ATM the moment I learned I'd been disinherited. Their shock was almost as satisfying as my freedom. What would you do if your family rewarded a lifetime of your support by cutting you out completely? Tell me and share your story in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe to see what happens next. My parents didn't include me in their will. They decided to give everything to my brothers. But they didn't know that one choice I would make could change everything. I sat down on the white wooden chair at the kitchen table, facing my parents and my 2 younger brothers. The kitchen smelled like pot roast and garlic bread, just like when I was a kid. But tonight, something felt very different. Elias and Rowan, my twin brothers, leaned back in their chairs, looking proud and full of themselves. My parents, Simon and Celeste, glanced at each other. My mom spoke first, her voice calm and controlled. "We want to talk to you about an important decision." I put my fork down slowly, feeling nervous and upset. My dad continued, his voice steady but not warm like it used to be. "We have finished our will, and we want you to hear it from us so there's no confusion later." Elias smirked and crossed his arms. "Everything goes to us," he said, like he was winning a game. I froze. "What?" I said, not believing my ears. Rowan repeated it, almost like it was a joke. "Mom and Dad are leaving this house, the beach condo, and all their money to us. You get nothing." The room went completely quiet. I looked at my mom, hoping she would say it was a mistake or a joke. But she only gave a small, firm nod. "We think this is for the best," she said, clutching a napkin in her hands. "You have a good job and earn enough money, but Elias and Rowan still need help. They aren't as independent as you are." I turned to my dad, waiting for him to say something, to look me in the eyes, to explain. But he didn't. He just stared down at his glass of water. My chest hurt so much I thought I might cry. I felt angry and sad at the same time. I had done so much for them. I had paid a big part of their mortgage for years. I had helped cover their medical bills. I had even given Elias and Rowan money many times when they couldn't handle their own. And now this was how they treated me. "So after everything I've done, you think I don't deserve anything?" I asked, my voice shaking even though I tried to stay calm. My mom sighed deeply, her eyes looking disappointed. "Serena, you always think about money too much," she said. I clenched my hands tightly under the table. "It's not about money," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's about fairness. I've always been there to help. I've always helped whenever you needed me. But now, just because I'm independent, I don't matter to this family anymore." Elias let out a short, mocking laugh. "You're being dramatic," he said. "No one forced you to help us. You just liked being the hero." Rowan laughed too, his eyes shining with amusement. "Maybe you thought that if you threw enough money at us, Mom and Dad would finally love you as much as they love us." Their words felt like a slap. I turned to my parents, hoping they would correct their sons, hoping they would say something, anything, to make them stop. But my parents stayed completely silent. And in that silence, I understood everything. They had chosen. I swallowed hard and took a deep breath. I had to stay calm. "All right," I said slowly. My voice was even, but my heart was pounding. "If that's your decision, then I have one of my own." Elias raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. "Oh really? And what's that?" I pushed my chair back and stood up, my heart hammering in my chest. "From now on," I said firmly, "don't expect anything from me." I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving them all behind. The smell of pot roast and garlic bread, once comforting, now felt empty and meaningless. The door clicked shut behind me, and I knew at that moment that everything had changed forever. The night air outside was crisp and cold, but inside me a fire was burning. Driving home, I didn't turn on the radio like I usually did. I needed silence to think, to feel everything all at once. Why was I even surprised? Hadn't I always known that in their eyes, I was just a source of money? Back in my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, my hands shaking as I unlocked my phone. The conversation replayed in my mind over and over. Every word cut deep. Elias and Rowan were getting everything. And I, the one who had paid for their mistakes, who had covered Elias's tuition every time he switched majors, who had sent Rowan money when he wanted a new car for his social media image, was left with nothing. I opened my banking app. The numbers stared back at me, like little reminders of all the money I had given them. $1,900 every month, sent to my parents to cover their mortgage and other expenses. Another $1,200 whenever Elias and Rowan called, complaining they needed more money. My parents said I was successful, that I didn't need to help. But what would happen to them now? Could they even pay their bills without me? I hovered my finger over the automatic transfer button. My heart was pounding. For years, I had accepted this burden as my responsibility. But this was their choice. They didn't need me. They had made that clear. No one was forcing me to continue. 1 second, 2 seconds. I pressed cancel. A notification popped up. Recurring payment successfully stopped. A wave of emotion crashed over me, anger, bitterness, but also relief. I set my phone down and sank into the couch, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders that I had carried for far too long. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying the past years in my head. The vacations I had turned down to cover their mortgage. The late nights working overtime to send Elias tuition money. The sacrifices I had made, believing they cared. But now, when I needed even 1 ounce of recognition, one sign that I mattered, they couldn't give me that. The next morning, my phone rang nonstop. It was Mom. I hesitated before answering. Serena, did you cancel this month's payment? Her voice was sharp and worried, but she tried to hide it. I took a deep breath. Yes, Mom. I realized I don't have to do this anymore. What do you mean? She asked, sounding confused. Family supports each other. You know we rely on that money for bills. I clenched my jaw, keeping my voice steady. Mom, family only matters to you when I'm paying for everything. I've helped for years, but in the end, I still don't mean anything to you. You're being selfish, Serena, she shouted. Why are you acting this way just because of the will? Everything isn't about money. I laughed, but not happily. Not about money? I've been paying the bills for you and this entire family. If money doesn't matter, why don't you ask Elias and Rowan to help you instead? Silence. I could imagine her face, angry and frustrated at being confronted. I can't believe you're acting like this, she finally said. This isn't the Serena I raised. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight in my chest. Mom, this is me. But you never really saw me. I hung up before she could say anything else. Standing there in my apartment, emotions swirled inside me. I knew she would call again. Dad might try too. And Elias and Rowan would definitely join in with their mockery or accusations. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel obligated to answer. I was no longer the family's ATM. I was no longer the only one carrying the weight. I had let go, and it was the best decision I had ever made. I looked around my apartment, suddenly seeing it in a new light. It wasn't just a place to sleep and work. It was mine, the only space where I didn't have to carry anyone else's burdens. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statement. The list of monthly expenses stared back at me. Transfers to my parents, to Elias, to Rowan. A constant reminder of the dependency they had placed on me. Not anymore. I canceled them one by one. Each confirmation felt like a sharp, clean cut from the past. $1,000 for the mortgage, gone. $900 for utilities, gone. $600, gone. I sat there staring at the screen, which now showed no active recurring payments. The freedom felt amazing. I realized something important. I had spent so many years thinking about their needs and forgetting my own. But now, for the first time, I didn't have to. The weight I had carried for years, trying to make them happy, was finally gone. I could breathe. I could live my life without feeling guilty. I could be free. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. Not for money, not for helping anyone, but for finally standing up for me. For the first time in many years, I felt free. But strangely, along with that freedom, there was a little emptiness inside me. I had spent so much time and energy being the responsible daughter. I had always taken care of things that my brothers, Elias and Rowan, never had to worry about. I had been the one who made sure the bills were paid, the house ran smoothly, and everyone had what they needed. Now, without those responsibilities, I didn't know what to do with myself. I walked to the window and opened it. A soft breeze brushed against my face, cool and refreshing. I poured a glass of water and drank it slowly, feeling it slide down my throat. Outside, the city was alive and busy. Cars honked, people walked by, lights blinked, and life went on as usual. And yet, I felt as if I had stepped into a completely new world. A world where I could set my own rules and decide what was right for me. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up and saw a message from Rowan. What are you doing? Elias says you cut off the money. Do you think this is funny? I read it, but I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another message came in from Elias. You're a traitor. Don't expect anyone in this family to see you as one of us again. I smirked, not because I was happy, but because I finally understood the truth. I was never really part of this family. I was just their helper, their sponsor, their money source. All these years I had given, and now I saw clearly what it meant to them. I put my phone down and stepped onto the balcony. The night air felt cool on my skin. I took a deep breath, feeling it fill my lungs. I had done the right thing, and nothing would make me go back now. For the first time, I felt in control of my life. The next morning, my phone rang over and over. I didn't even need to check who it was. Slowly, I picked it up. My mom's voice came through before I could even say hello. "Serena, what are you thinking?" she shouted. Her voice was a mix of anger and worry. "Why did you stop the payments? We need that money for bills." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Mom, I can't do this anymore," I said calmly. "Helped. You're abandoning your family. Do you even think about how this affects us? We sacrificed so much for you, and this is how you repay us." I let out a dry laugh. "Sacrificed? Do you know how funny that sounds? If I owe you for raising me, haven't I already paid you back by helping this whole family with money?" Mom paused. Her voice got sharper. "You've changed, Serena. You let money control you." "No, Mom," I said, my voice calm and steady. "You let money control you. I'm not your personal bank anymore." She sighed loudly and hung up without another word. I stared at the screen, my heart beating steadily. Then more messages started coming in. "Elias, you're ungrateful. Mom is crying because of you. Rowan, you think you're so smart. You'll regret this. Elias, don't bother showing up at our parents' funeral when they die." I read each message, feeling a mixture of anger and disappointment. Not one of them asked why I had done this. Not one cared about the years I had worked hard to support them. They were only angry because I had stopped paying for their lives. The phone rang again. This time it was Dad. I let it ring. And ring. Then I went into my phone settings and blocked Elias, Rowan, and Mom. Once I was done, I put my phone down, closed my eyes, and exhaled slowly. Silence filled my apartment. It was rare and unfamiliar, but also incredibly peaceful. No more ringing. No more messages full of guilt. No more manipulation. I stepped onto the balcony and breathed in the crisp morning air. For the first time in years, I was truly free. 3 weeks passed in silence. No more calls. No more guilt-laden messages from Mom. I began to think maybe they finally understood that I was no longer going to be their money helper. Maybe they had accepted the truth. Then, one Friday evening, my phone buzzed with a message. "Family meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. Don't be late." It was short, cold, and gave no explanation. My chest sank. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another, smaller part of me whispered that maybe this was the last chance to fix things. Maybe they really wanted to have an honest conversation. I decided to go. When I arrived at my parents' house, the living room felt tight and heavy, full of tension. Elias and Rowan were already on the couch, arms crossed and faces cold. My dad stood near the fireplace, and my mom sat in an armchair, her eyes red and puffy from crying. Before I could speak, Mom said, "Serena, I don't understand you anymore. How far do you want to go in destroying this family?" I frowned. "What are you talking about?" Dad sighed heavily. "You've put us in serious financial trouble. If you keep being stubborn, your mom will break down." I laughed dryly. "So now I'm the reason Mom is exhausted? What about all the years I carried this family with money?" She seemed fine then. Elias shook his head. "You always make everything about money. Do you really think the world revolves around you?" Rowan leaned forward, arms crossed. "You have a good job and a comfortable life. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? You're just paying the price for being selfish." Their words cut me deep. I had hoped for a real conversation. I had hoped for understanding. But all I got was pressure and manipulation. I took a deep breath and studied by myself. "If this is why you called me here, don't waste your time. I'm not coming back." Mom's face went blank. "What did you just say?" I stood up and took one last look around the house. "I've done everything I could to be part of this family. But if your love for me only matters when I give you money, I don't need that kind of love." No one said a word as I walked to the door. No one stopped me. I left for good. 2 days later, I returned to my apartment late at night and immediately felt something was wrong. My front door was sealed shut with hard foam covering the door frame and handle. I reached out and touched it. It was cold and solid. Someone had done this on purpose. I stepped back, my heart pounding. This wasn't a harmless prank. This was meant to keep me out of my own home. I grabbed my phone and checked the hallway security camera. Fast-forwarding through the footage, I saw Rowan wearing a baseball cap and hoodie. His walk and posture were unmistakable. He smirked while holding a can of foam spray, filling every crack of my door. My hands shook with rage. I didn't hesitate. I called the police. When the officers arrived, I handed over the footage as evidence. One of them nodded as they watched. "Do you want to press charges?" asked one officer. I gripped my phone tightly, my body tense. If I let this go, it would only get worse. Rowan wasn't just angry, he was willing to break the law. "I want him to face consequences," I said firmly. The next day, my phone rang again. I ignored it. Then Dad called. Then Elias. Finally, I picked up. "Serena, your brother got called in by the police. How could you do this to your own family?" Dad's voice was sharp and full of anger. I stayed calm. "Rowan damaged my property. If he doesn't want to face charges, he needs to pay for the damage." "How much?" Dad asked. $3,000, I said without hesitation. "How can you demand money from your own brother?" I let out a dry laugh. "It's not demanding. It's called consequences." The next morning, $3,000 appeared in my bank account, along with a bitter note. "I never want to see you again." I read it and felt nothing. Then my phone lit up with a message from a distant relative. "Serena, is this true? People say you abandoned your family even though they are struggling." I frowned. Another message came in. "How could you cut off your parents and brothers like this? They took care of you all your life." I opened social media and immediately saw what was happening. Mom had posted a long story saying I had abandoned the family, that I was selfish, and had left my parents and brothers with nothing. People who didn't know the whole story flooded the comments with support for her and blamed me. I scrolled through the responses, feeling how wrong it all was. It is very sad when kids who do well in life forget about where they came from. Parents give up so much for their children. They work hard, stay up late, worry about money, and always try to help. But sometimes, the children forget all of this and act like their parents didn't do anything for them. That made me very upset. Serena must have let money go to her head. I felt anger rising in my chest. Not because some stranger was judging me, but because my own family had changed the story about me and made it look like I was the bad one. They didn't tell anyone the truth. They didn't say I had paid most of my parents' mortgage for years. They didn't say I had helped pay school tuition for Elias and Rowan. They didn't even say I had helped with their personal expenses like new clothes or trips. They also didn't tell anyone that Rowan had broken my apartment. He used spray paint and glued things to my door. I had to call the police to protect myself. But when they told their story, they made it sound like I was a heartless daughter who had left them without caring. I sat quietly for a few minutes. I thought, should I stay quiet? Should I ignore this and let them control the story? But then I knew the answer. No. I had put up with their lies and manipulation for too long. I opened my app on my phone and tapped New Post. If my family wanted to tell their version to everyone, I had the right to tell mine too. I started writing. I told everything. I wrote about every dollar I had spent over the last 10 years. I wrote about the money I gave them to keep the house, pay school fees, and even money that Elias and Rowan used for new cars and vacations. I explained how they always saw me as a money machine, not as a daughter or a sister. I told everyone how Rowan had glued my apartment door with industrial foam, forcing me to call the police. I wrote that I didn't turn my back on my family. My family turned their backs on me whenever I wasn't giving them money. And now I was standing up for myself. I hit post. Within a few hours, my post caused a big stir. Relatives started asking questions. Some were surprised because they never knew these things before. An aunt sent me a private message asking if it was true that I had helped the family for so many years. Some extended family members even began saying that my mom had been twisting the truth. But the strongest reaction came from my immediate family. Mom called immediately. I answered. Her voice was full of fury, so angry that she could barely talk. "Serena, what have you done?" she yelled. I stayed calm. "Mom, I just told the truth," I said. "If you have the right to tell your version of the story, so do I." She was out of breath. "You are humiliating the family. Your father is so ashamed, he won't even leave the house. Did you think about how Elias and Rowan feel?" I held my phone tightly. Did they ever think about how I felt when Rowan ruined my home? Did they think about me when I was paying their bills? She went quiet for a moment, and then her voice turned cold. "You are destroying this family. If you do this, don't think you can come back. We are no longer your family." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Mom, you destroyed this family, not me," I said. Then I hung up. No tears, no regret. For the first time, I felt relieved. I had lost my family, but maybe they were never truly my family to begin with. After my post, my family went completely silent. No angry messages from Elias. No furious calls from Dad. All contact stopped, as if I had never existed. But this time I didn't feel guilty. I was free. At first, the silence felt strange. The evenings I used to spend solving my family's financial problems were now mine. No more desperate late-night calls. No more canceled plans because someone needed my help. I poured all my energy into work. I focused on a big project my company was working on. I worked harder than ever. I finished the project early, and it went so well that I got a promotion. On the day I received my promotion letter, I stood in my new office. I looked out over the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I felt proud. For the first time, I could enjoy my success without feeling obligated to share it with anyone. Then I decided to travel. I had always dreamed of taking a long trip, but every time I thought about spending money on myself, I felt guilty. I always thought I had to help my family first. But now nothing was holding me back. I booked a plane ticket to Italy. When the plane landed in Florence, it felt like I was stepping into a completely new world. The streets were made of cobblestones, cafes smelled like fresh coffee, and the old buildings seemed to whisper stories from hundreds of years ago. It all made me feel alive. I wandered through narrow streets, spent hours in museums looking at paintings I had only seen in books, ate the freshest pasta I had ever tasted, and sipped rich red wine while the sun set over the rooftops. I was no longer the person who constantly worried about others. I was no longer in my family's bank account. I was just me. One late afternoon, I was sitting in a small cafe near Piazza della Signoria enjoying a hot cappuccino. A man spoke to me. "You really like this place, huh?" I looked up and saw a man smiling at me. He had light brown hair, a calm smile, and looked confident. "I think I just fell in love with this city," I said with a small smile. He pulled out a chair and sat down without asking, like we were old friends. "Me too," he said. "This is my third time here." "A loyal traveler, huh?" I asked. "You could say that." "My name's Eamon," he said. "I'm Serena," I said. We talked for a long time. He was from New York, worked in interior design, and loved European architecture. Talking to him felt so easy. There were no pressures, no expectations, just a simple, happy conversation. When I got up to leave, he smiled. "If you ever want company while exploring Florence, I'd be happy to join you." I nodded. "I think I'd like that, Eamon." The next few days felt like a dream. Eamon and I walked through local markets, tried gelato, and walked along the Arno River as the sun set and painted the sky gold. He didn't ask about my family. He didn't pry into my past. He just saw me for who I was at that moment. A woman finally embracing her freedom. For the first time, I felt valued. Not for money, not for responsibilities, just for being me. One evening, we sat on a rooftop terrace looking at the glowing city lights. I smiled to myself. I had once believed that my happiness depended on my family. I had once thought that if I gave enough, they would love me. But the truth was, I didn't need love from people who never cared about me. I could make my own happiness. And right there, under the Italian night sky, I knew I was doing exactly that. After returning from Italy, I went back to my life, but with a new way of thinking. I was no longer Serena, the daughter who gave everything to a family that never appreciated her. I was stronger, freer, and more myself than ever. The months that followed were peaceful. Work thrived. I joined Sunday yoga classes, met new friends, and finally embraced the life I had put on hold for too long. I enjoyed going out, reading books, and learning new things. Then news about my old family started to appear. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed. A message came from Aunt Cecily, my mother's cousin. It said, "I know you don't care about the family anymore, but your parents are really struggling. Your father is working night shifts at a warehouse, and your mother is taking cleaning jobs. They look very tired." I paused, staring at the screen. I had seen this coming. When I had been helping them with money, they never thought about standing on their own. They always relied on me. Now that I stopped helping, they had to face reality. I set my phone down without replying. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel guilty. I just felt free. I had learned an important lesson. I realized I didn't need people who only cared about what I could give them. I could live my life happily on my own, make my own choices, and find people who truly cared about me. And that was exactly what I planned to do. A few days later, I heard from a friend that Elias had lost his job because he didn't do his work well. Rowan was still trying to become a famous person on social media, but nothing was happening. I wasn't surprised, and I didn't feel responsible for them anymore. They had chances to change and learn how to be independent, but they didn't. Now they had to face the results of their own choices. I used to think that not spending Christmas with my parents and brothers would make me feel lonely. But as Christmas got closer, I realized I had people who really cared about me, and that was what mattered most. I decided to have a small Christmas party at my apartment. Aunt Odette came first. She carried a box of homemade cookies and gave me a big, warm hug. "I'm so proud of you, Serena," she said as I welcomed her inside. I smiled. She was the only person in my family who ever said that to me. Odette looked at me with eyes full of understanding and a little sadness. "I just wish they had seen how special you are before it was too late," she said. I didn't answer. I poured her a glass of wine and invited her to sit inside. One by one, my friends came. They brought wine, desserts, and lots of laughter. That night, I laughed more than I had at any Christmas before. There were no forced conversations, no pressure to be polite or meet anyone's expectations. I was just happy being myself. When the clock struck midnight, I stood on my balcony and looked at the Christmas lights all over the city. I felt something I had never felt before. Peace. No more heavy feelings, no more feeling used. Just me, my life, and the people who really loved me for who I was. That was the best Christmas gift I could ever get. Later, I sat in my armchair and watched the city lights shine in my window. Outside, the world kept moving, cars, people, lights, but inside me, everything was calm. I had once believed that family was everything. That I had to give and give, even if they didn't treat me well. I thought if I tried hard enough, they would finally love me. But that wasn't true. Family isn't just the people you're related to. Family is the people who care about you, don't take advantage of you, and love you no matter what. My parents, Elias and Rowan, had never truly been like that. I remembered how they took me out of the will, as if to say I was worth nothing to them except for money. They thought that would make me beg for their love again. But they didn't know, they had given me the best gift ever. They had let me go. They had set me free. I used to be a woman weighed down by responsibilities, expectations, and sacrifices that nobody appreciated. But now I have the power to live my own life. I could go anywhere, do anything, and never worry about being asked for money or guilt trips. I could spend time with people who really loved me, friends who stayed even when I had nothing to give, and an aunt who had quietly helped me all along. I could love and be loved in a way I never knew before. I looked at my phone on the table. No missed calls from my family. They had let me go, and for the first time, I wasn't scared. I picked up my glass of wine, took a slow sip, and felt its warmth spread through me. I used to live for my family. Now I chose to live for myself. And that wasn't selfish. That was freedom.